Welcome back to the Pokemon North America International Championship here in 2019. We are about to get started with the finals match for the Pokemon Trading Card Game Seniors Division. Are you ready to meet your players? I sure am. First, from the United States, Isaiah Bradner. And also from the United States, Reagan Retzlaff. Welcome to the stage. Please go ahead and shake hands, guys. Take your seats. We can't wait to watch you play. Let's get right to it.
Sneaking out, maybe not at the right spot, but larger
Here we see the prizes, and actually, prizes are going to be very important, specifically for Isaiah, as we did get to see Reagan's prizes, and okay, huge. Isaiah plays one card that basically just trumps the entire strategy that Reagan has. And as long as it wasn't prized, which it's not, we're talking about Mew, by the way, as long as Mew is not prized, then he's going to be able to get it into play pretty consistently, meaning there's spread damage. The entire strategy from Reagan is just going to be completely mitigated, and Reagan's just going to have an uphill battle from that point on. It's going to be very difficult for Reagan to overcome this this Mew, and because it's not prized, it means big things for Isaiah, and very difficult battles to come for Reagan.
Oh yeah, so absolutely. Isaiah on this first search of the game, he's got that nest ball. He's going to take a peek. He just wants to make sure that all of his ideal pieces are available for him.
Yep. Isaiah getting to go first is always, well, getting to go first is always important, but Isaiah getting to go first here is very nice for him. He's going to be able to set up a lot of basic Pokemon, which he's going to want to evolve on his following turn. Of course, Nest Ball, the ideal card on turn 1 there. You want to find Zorwas, you want to find potentially Ditto, Meowths, all of these different Pokemon. I mean, you can go all the way, down to Seal, for example, which, by the way, Dugong can very well be an important factor in this matchup.
Yep, we did see that the Dugong was in the prize cards, but a little more of an interesting tidbit here. Isaiah generally likes to fill his board and do a lot of damage with a Riotous Beating, but we could see him go with a different strategy in this matchup, being that he's playing against a spread deck. Maybe you don't want to commit too many resources until just the right time.
We now see Tapu Lele GX wonder tagging for a Lily there. So, of course, Lily, as powerful as it can get on turn 1, as it's going to draw you additional cards. Instead of 6, you're going to be drawing up until you get to 8 cards in hand. And if you can play your hand down pretty low, that can just swing the game in and of itself. And there's a Mew in his hand already. Isaiah already gripping potentially the most relevant card in this matchup for him.
Yeah, chooses not to show it here as well. He's going to just take 1 fewer cards and hold on to that until the right time.
Yeah, you don't want your opponent to Guzma it into the active spot. Of course, Reagan plays a very limited amount of Guzmas. I believe only 1, actually.
Right.
So it will be very difficult for Reagan to target that Mew down. But at the same time, if you have it in play on turn 1, then it's not really very effective quite yet. You want your opponent to start setting up a strategy, and then you can ruin it with a single play.
Yep. So now over to Reagan's side. He's got that Frost Rotom, and that is not meant for this matchup. He would much rather have that playing against a Reshiram Charizard deck, but it is just going to provide him an active Pokemon for now. He's probably going to have to work around that, find his Coughings, get his Weezings, and start to work on this spread strategy that he has.
Yeah, not only is it not meant for this matchup, it's also kind of stuck in the active position now. So he's going to have to find a way to get it out of there at some point. But in the meantime, we do see a Mysterious Treasure, finding Reagan any Psychic or Dragon Pokemon from his deck, and of course he chooses a Coughing, wants to get Weezing out ASAP, but also just wants to get multiples of this card into play. Make sure that your opponent can't just Guzma it out and leave you without an attacker on your second turn.
Absolutely. The earliest you can get that Detention Gas going from your Weezing is going to be on the second turn, and he'd love to have that set up as soon as possible.
Now, Shrine of Punishment comes down, as well as an energy card onto Coughing before we see a first turn Lily from Reagan as well. So both of these players getting a turn 1 Lily, and now we see another Coughing, well, another pair of Coughing. So the whole family's already down. And,
yep.
And wow, a Marshadow also going to be able to shuffle both of these players' hands back into their decks. We're going to let loose on turn 1 here from Reagan. Both of these players are now going to be down to a 4-card hand. Remember, it is very dangerous to be at such a low hand size. You can very easily just draw nothing. And if you do so, then your opponent can just kind of run away with the game. That's something that you want to avoid if possible. But because Isaiah's already got so many of these basic Pokemon that can evolve into play, it's going to be much harder for Isaiah to draw a hand that just doesn't help him out here.
Right, and Isaiah very wisely left an open bench space as well, so this leaves draws that can help him get out of a spot like this. He's got his Zoruas, so Zoroarks are going to be live draws for him as well. And Reagan did a good job of playing a lot of Pokemon into the field. He also played a Spell Tag and a Counter Energy down onto his Coughing, so got a few cards out of his deck, so his draws could be pretty good as well.
All right, looks like a 4-card hand. I think I saw a Dedenne and his Zoroark GX.
Yep, that's going to be pretty sweet for Isaiah. He's got that trade ability already set up for him. Don't need Choice Band in a matchup like this. Your opponent's going to be playing a lot of non-GX Pokemon.
And we do take a little bit of a peek in Isaiah's hand if he doesn't find any additional help, which looks like he did in Tate and Liza. But if he didn't find any additional help, he could have played that Dedenne. Ideally, he'll keep this this board at 4 Pokemon for as long as possible. That way he can play the Mew down whenever necessary.
Yep.
But obviously, if push came to shove, I'm sure he wouldn't have hesitated to use Dead A change there.
Yep, so we are going to see that Tate and Liza using the first effect of the card, just getting 5.
I think I see another Zoroark. There it is. 2 Zoroarks in play now. That's double trade from here on out, Kyle. And right away, we see him take advantage of this ability, which has just been so dominant in the 2 years it's been around. Remember, after today, Zoroark will no longer be in the standard environment. This is Zoroark's last hurrah, the final ride for this just unbelievable Pokemon, which I wouldn't be surprised to enter the Hall of Fame in players' minds from here on out. It's just been such a marvel of a Pokemon.
Yep, so very quickly we saw that Isaiah did have that resetting whole Marshadow. He got that into play and was able to remove the Shrine of Punishment, but very quickly Reagan played a new Shrine of Punishment down into play. Of course, Isaiah does have options to get back this Marshadow. He could use a card like Rescue Stretcher and continue to remove that Shrine of Punishment. Just wants to make sure that the damage doesn't start to compile on his side of the board with all of those GX Pokemon that he has in play.
Yeah, now Adventure Bag will be able to find Reagan any 2 Pokemon tools he'd like. Of course, Spell Tag, just a wonderful card here with these Psychic Pokemon. Yep. And he does find 2 of them. So, powerful effect here out of just a single item card. And now, I mean, with Frost Rotom still in the active spot and your opponent already having a couple of Zoroark GXs, that Shrine of Punishment has to pull a lot of duty here.
We'll see what that last card is in Reagan's hand. He really doesn't have much going from what I've seen. He's got that Tapu Koko Prism. Is that last card a Lily?
I think so.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's perfect. All right.
All right. 6 cards here out of Lily. Reagan Retzloff playing his hand down to nothing before drawing 6 additional cards. So that's going to bring a lot of help for the Weezing player. And, of course, an energy attached onto the Frost Rotom. It can't leave that active spot soon enough. A couple of Weezings in play now. Spell tags on all of them. You can't write it up any better than that. Turn 2.
This is going to be pretty great for Reagan. He can just bring up that Weezing that doesn't have the energy if he would like to. He's actually going to choose to bring up the one with an energy. Not going to be able to use any attacks because that counter energy is not going to work for him there. He's not technically losing in this game right now, so just going to see that detention gas start to flood.
Yeah, he could just be stuck with a hand that has no energy besides like a counter energy, or maybe he's just banking on if all he draws is counter energy on the next turn, then he'll be able to attack. Who knows? But now we see the power of Zoroark GX, by the way, as yes, of course, Shrine of Punishment, putting damage on 3 of Isaiah's 5 Pokemon in play. But between Zoroark and his draw for the turn, he can draw 5 cards total this turn without playing a supporter. That's power that you can't. Wow. Guzma, by the way, bringing up Tapu Koko, he notices that Tapu Koko is a very dangerous Pokemon here. It could put damage on all of Isaiah's Pokemon and just speed up the clock tremendously for Reagan.
Yep. When that damage starts to spread around with Flying Flip, you know that you're going to be in trouble. Honestly, 100 damage every time for a double colorless energy at this point would be pretty detrimental.
And 100 damage applied onto the Tapu Koko. Not quite a knockout.
Yep, this means that Isaiah's not going to trigger that counter energy over for Reagan, so just going to get some important damage onto the Tapu Koko. Of course, he can clean that up later with a Giratina using Distortion Door.
Turn back on Reagan here. Plays a rescue stretcher, can find any Pokemon in his discard pile or any 3 Pokemon and shuffle them back in. Chooses to find the only 2 Pokemon in his discard pile, puts them back on top of the deck, and chooses to Cynthia his hand back in order to draw 6 cards. With 2 Weezings in play, you want to find another one, of course, but at this point, you also want to find some double colorless energies more than anything.
Yep, we did see him get to shuffle in that Larvitar. That Larvitar can be pretty impactful on knocking out a Zoroark. Having the access to second strike is going to be able to do a lot of damage to a Zoroark in the active spot.
Reagan draws his 6 cards here. This game not blisteringly fast quite yet, but I guarantee you once Isaiah starts attacking, the clock will be fast on Reagan, as Isaiah will be able to take a single prize return from that point on. Of course, 100 damage is not enough to knock out the Pokemon on Reagan's field, but still quite a bit.
This should definitely have more on it, right? It's 4. Yep.
So we do see Detention Gas along with Shrine of Punishment slowly but surely starting to whittle away at Isaiah's board.
Of course, Detention Gas, as we see on our screen, allows, just allows for all this spread damage to really take effect. A lot of decks play very few evolutions. Of course, Isaiah's deck, not one of them. But even then, still being able to deal basically 20 damage in a sense to Isaiah's Pokemon between turns does kind of add up. And Shrine of Punishment, of course, taking turn after turn. Now Isaiah, will he find his attacks? Will Isaiah continue to use the strategy of just dealing 100 damage a turn, or will he finally fill up his bench and knock out this Weezing? That's the big question here.
Yeah, I honestly, I think his strategy's pretty sound. If he continues to deal 100 damage, he doesn't have to let Reagan get off big attacks, and the damage will slowly start to increase in the way it does. And that's not too bad for Isaiah. He plays cards like Acerola, so he could always pick up damaged Pokemon. And if he doesn't open up a bench space for Reagan, then you're not going to get surprised by a Larvitar.
Yeah, I mean, you see that 60 damage on Tapu Lele, and you can start to panic. But because of cards like Acerola, which we see perfectly right there, you don't really have to worry. It's not like your opponent, it's not like Reagan's just immediately going to knock out this Tapu Lele. It's still going to be a few turns, so you give yourself additional time to find key cards like Acerola there. And now that we see Mew, we now get to see the strategy start to really take effect, as Mew is going to stop additional damage coming out of Weezing, and we'll basically limit Weezing to 40 damage, 20 damage on the Zoroark GX after resistance. You know, it doesn't get much weaker than that.
Yeah, the attack power from Reagan's deck is going to be very, very limited. He's going to have to rely on his Shrines of Punishment and his ability card in that Weezing.
All right. Now, if you're in Reagan's seat, what exactly are you trying to do now that you see the Mew in play?
It's a really awkward game to play for him, honestly. He's kind of happy where he is because damage is starting to accumulate, and slowly but surely the Mew will get to a point where it's going to need to get saved just from the Detention Gas alone. So he might just feel safe passing with Weezing in the active spot for a few turns.
Yeah, it's not like Isaiah's putting any pressure on, right? Like, there's no damage on this active Weezing. The only damage on your field is the 100 onto Tapu Koko. It's just, it seems like Isaiah's a little bit behind, if I'm being honest with you.
I think that's designed. If he goes ahead, then Reagan really likes to play from behind. So when they're at this stalemate, Isaiah probably feels the most comfortable.
Sure.
He just would love to have energies right now so that he could at least get some damage onto Reagan's side of the board.
Nest Ball potentially finding Isaiah any one Pokemon or any basic Pokemon to fill his bench and potentially get a knockout onto Weezing. If he finds a double colorless energy, he chooses not to find any. So now it seems like his strategy is kind of, you know, he's playing face up at this point. You know, when you choose not to find a Pokemon to fill your bench and potentially one-hit KO this Weezing. At this point, your strategy is on the table. Your opponent, Reagan, now knows what you're trying to do. You're discarding Pokemon left and right, and you're choosing not to fill up your bench on purpose. So you're absolutely right. This is a strategy that Isaiah has designed. Now, whether it's going to work or not remains to be seen. We do see a lot of damage starting to accumulate, specifically onto the basic Pokemon.
So as we see the Persian hit the discard pile, do you think that Isaiah wants his Pokemon to get knocked out now? Because if he lets Reagan get a prize advantage, then counter energy is never going to be able to come into play.
I don't think he minds letting the non-Mew Pokemon get knocked out, the non-Mew basics. I think Mew is just still very important.
Reagan's like, let's just keep doing damage. I'm winning, yay.
Well, this is a strategy, and Isaiah knew that he was going to be playing against this deck as of last night. So I'm sure that he play tested it. I'm sure that this isn't just something that he's coming up with on the fly, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm sure it's worked in the past, and I'm sure that he's very comfortable in this position. We do see a double colorless here drawn for Isaiah, so we will be able to start attacking if he so chooses.
Yep.
Only 3 Pokemon in play. Reagan taking his first prize and finally ahead on prizes. Isaiah free to start knocking out Pokemon here without suffering the repercussions of putting the energy online, counter energy online. Now Nestball finds a Pokemon. Now that it's not going to fill up his bench, he's comfortably going to find another Zorua, and he does play that double colorless energy, which means he'll be able to attack. Riotous Beating will be able to deal 100 damage onto the Weezing.
Yep, and this is exactly where he wants to be. He doesn't want to take knockouts right now. He'd rather this Poiple fall to the discard pile and his opponent get ahead.
So now the big question is going to be, how's he finally going to take the lead with this strategy? At some point, he's got to take the lead. So at some point, he's got to decide to essentially pull the trigger and say, this is it, this is my strategy, can you beat it? Reagan, on the other hand, plays his double colorless now, as he's now going to start attacking.
Yeah, I mean, he's already taken 2 prize cards, and he might sense that there's some blood in the water. If he can start to get some relevant damage onto the board, we could see him start to pull ahead here.
How much do you think it's going to matter that this Mew is going to get knocked out?
Well, the fact that Isaiah has multiple rescue stretchers means that he could certainly shuffle in a lot of relevant cards back into his deck. We could see that Mew come right back into play. Also, with the size of Isaiah's bench right now, it's not too big of a deal for the Weezing to be attacking. We're seeing a lot of Reagan's energies being used right now, and we're never going to see those counter energies come to full effect with the way that this strategy's panned out. So I wouldn't be terribly concerned about the Mew falling here.
Sure, I can agree with that. The thing is, though, and it's important to note, there's only a limited amount of Acerolas, you know? Like,
yep.
It's not like you have
I think it's 1.
Well, I guess we can find out pretty soon. But still, like, there's only so many times that you can use this elongate the strategy of your Isaiah. At some point, that damage is going to add up, and you're going to fear for your Zoroarks there, and you're going to fear that each time that damage ticks up, they're one step closer to getting knocked out, and your opponent taking 2 prizes there. And when Reagan's already down to 3 prizes, it's looking really, really dangerous here for Isaiah. I know it's a strategy that he's cooked up, but it's...
You got to live on the
not
edge,
a comfortable spot. Yeah, it's not. You can't feel comfortable at this point with 110 damage on your active Zoroark GX, and you still being at 6 prizes.
All right, so with that Giratina, the Distortion Door, you can start to put some damage counters onto the bench. So we could see a strategy where the Weezings get knocked out in big swing turns. That's going to be something to keep our eye on throughout this game here.
Another thing to mention and to note is that there is a Pal Pad in Isaiah's deck, so he could theoretically find another Acerola at some point.
Yep, Judge and Acerola are going to be great cards for him to recycle throughout this game with the Pal Pad. He also has Oranguru to shuffle those cards back into his deck if he so chooses.
Nestball here, potentially finding a mini Pokemon he'd like. I believe he's going for Poiple.
Yep. You know, another good strategy too is you could always use Stinger.
Yeah, exactly. You reset your board, or I'm sorry, you reset the prizes after your opponent's finally got himself down to 1, for example, and I mean, you haven't taken any prizes, right? All of a sudden,
Yeah,
your opponent has a
it
field
sets
full of
up
100
for
damage.
a 3-prize turn. You could have the distortion door come into play, take 2 knockouts, and then knock out the active Pokemon and win the game. So we could see that strategy from Isaiah. That'd be really fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of brilliant in a sense if you think about it. If he can pull it off the way he'd like, then that's gonna kind of set up like a 2-turn victory, even though his opponent's been at 6 prizes the whole game. With that said, not the easiest thing to pull off. So we will have to see if he can do it. And there we see the field blower.
Nicely done.
Yeah, a very timely field blower, getting rid of not only Shrine of Punishment, but also spell tag there as
This is my favorite part about
they
playing
ran
against
out of damage
Weezy.
counters.
It's like, we need more dice.
The emergency damage counters come out.
Yep. So, I mean, we've seen Isaiah's strategy. It's been pretty flawlessly executed from this point on. He's got all the damage counters that he wants in play here. Maybe going to see that Giratina come down soon and start to set up those Weezings, and then he honestly could just be one big play away after a stinger from winning the game.
Yeah, we knew that Isaiah's strategy coming into this, thanks to a little inside information, was going to be that he was going to try to set up a big, single turn. Now, whether it was going to work or not is still to be determined, but that's Isaiah's strategy, and he's been using it about as effectively as he can, right? Like, he hasn't taken a single prize yet. He's put multiple Pokemon within striking distance of being knocked out. This could be a thing of beauty that we're in the middle of watching here.
Yeah, it's very smart, and he knows that his opponent isn't going to be playing any heal effects. I don't believe we would see an Acerola come out of Reagan's deck. It's just not his strategy. He kind of minds, he doesn't mind at all going behind in prizes so that he can get the use out of his counter energies. And Isaiah said, you know what, I'm going to just lose better than you so that I can win.
I'm going to lose better than you. Sound strategy. Bold strategy, if anything.
We'll see if it pays off.
All right, there's that Naganadel GX. We've talked about Stinger GX. Looks like that triple acceleration energy does tell us that strategy is about to come into fruition. Will he finally will he Stinger GX right now?
Well, he wants to get multiple distortion doors down so that he could because he's currently going to be 10 damage short of a 3-prize turn. Curious to see how he's going to be able to set that piece up for himself.
I believe he only plays a single Giratina.
Yep, so he'd have to find a way to get it back into the discard pile.
So you'd have to Acerola it back up and then Ultra Ball.
You could use trade and then throw it away and then just put it right back in.
Oh yeah, maybe not necessarily an Ultra Ball, but a trade definitely.
All right. Who's ready for the prize graphics to get weird?
All right, here we go. So Isaiah Bradner is going to be using Stinger GX. Both players are going to be resetting their prizes at 3 apiece, despite Reagan going up 3 prizes to nothing. Thanks to that powerful GX attack, we will see both of these players now in even footing, on an even playing field, despite, well, except for the fact that there's a lot of Pokemon in play with a lot of damage counters. So the game's going to shorten down quite a bit here from this point on, and that's all been planned out here. This has all been by design by Isaiah Bradner. Will the design be a Picasso? Or
I could see the nose and the eyes being way out of place right now with all the damage counters that's everywhere, but it certainly is beautiful.
oh man. All right.
All right.
Reagan Retzloff now.
We'll see how he pieces this together, if he can either do it in 1 turn or if it has to be done in 2.
So I know that Acerola is one of the ways that you can Giratina twice. Is there any other way to Giratina twice here?
Well, one of his ways to get multiple damage, hit multiple Pokemon with damage is the Dugong. We saw that was in the prizes earlier.
Right.
The prizes did get shuffled around, so maybe we could see a Seal hit the bench and he could work on that way. I don't know if the Giratina is going to be a possibility twice.
There's Palpad, by the way, getting shuffled in. getting shuffled back into the, or Pal Patch shuffling Acerola back into the deck. So he too sees that that's going to be one potential route to victory if he can find the Acerola. Does not, but finds a seal.
Yep, once that bench space opened for the Giratina, found Acerola.
He finds Acerola. Acerola's up.
Oh, can you can just use Mew's attack here.
Oh, of course.
Oh boy, here we go.
Putting 2 damage, 1 damage counter on 2 different Pokemon, knocking out the Tapu Koko, and now because of Psy Power, we'll be able to take 3 prizes in a single turn. Of course, Psy Power. We were thinking this entire time. Well, music's incredibly important because of its ability, but of course, Psy Power, an attack that often gets neglected, and apparently it was its time to shine, as that was one very easy way to take 3 prizes in this single turn. And we saw how Isaiah Bradner's strategy just worked to absolute perfection, Kyle.
Yeah, we knew that the Mew was going to be a pivotal card in this matchup. Didn't know it was going to be the attack, though. It's always great to see when you have 60 cards in your deck, you go and you look down the list and you try to figure out what is the best strategy for taking down a deck that is as weird as a Weezing deck. And he was able to see that, well, I have a difficulty getting this last bit of finishing damage. Who could possibly do it for me? And right there, the Mew at it and able to move those damage counters, get those damage counters onto the board. Perfect amount, able to take the knockout and the win here. We'll see if he gets to do this strategy one more time and become the North American International Champion, or maybe Reagan's going to go with a different approach here after seeing just how dominating that was for Isaiah.
I couldn't have said that better myself. So the one thing that is really sticking out to me here is that we're so used to just seeing these games of Pokemon where players are just attacking each other back and forth. There's no, there's no like secret strategy behind it. There's just, you make sure that that you are as consistent as possible, really.
Yep.
That's really what it comes down to, and specifically with the Zoroark deck, right? The Zoroark deck has heavy hit points, high damage output, and a ton of consistency. To see Isaiah use this deck, which has been around for so long, and craft just a masterpiece of a strategy and execute it just absolutely perfectly, falling behind for multiple turns, just setting up damage on the right Pokemon for 3 consecutive turns, and then finally using that Stinger GX and on the following turn securing a victory. It was just, that's a strategy that you can't come up with on the fly usually. That's a strategy that you absolutely draw up, and to see it executed on the seniors final stage is just, it's a thing of beauty.
Yep, that was developed in the think tank. I would like to know if maybe that was Stefan's thoughts. I'm sure he was thinking of matchups like this when they were crafting the deck, getting every last piece put together. They were testing the whole week before. We know that the only difference in the list is that Isaiah has that Oranguru in his deck. He was a little more concerned about the stall matchups in the seniors division.
Sure. Because we focus so much on the Masters division all the time, it's very easy for us to know who the best Masters in the world are. It's very easy for us to know exactly what these Masters players are capable of. Isaiah Bradner specifically, after all of his accomplishments, after topping 6 out of 9 international championships, you have to believe that he's one of the greatest minds in the game, not just in the senior division, but in the entire game itself.
Yep, he's also paired himself with a lot of fantastic players throughout the years, and he's going to have that moment to shine for him in the Masters division in the next coming year. So definitely going to be on the lookout for Isaiah in the Masters division. But of course, we still got some gameplay here. We're going to move into game 2 of the Seniors Division Championship.
Here we go. Reagan Retzloff on the right, down 1-0 against Isaiah Bradner. He does have to win 2 consecutive games in order to take home that champion trophy. Will he be able to pull it off? We'll have to wait and see, but he does get to go first, and he plays the Pokegear on turn 1. Will he find a turn 1 Lily? Doesn't seem like he finds anything. So with a Ditto active, with a spell tag attached to it, and a coughing on the bench, he has to get some additional help from his hand if he wants to have an explosive turn 1. We've seen how game 1 went to Isaiah. So after seeing Isaiah's strategy, can Reagan come up with a counter strategy of his own to take this game to 3?
We do see that Lily was in his hand.
There's a Lily in his hand already, so he's going to draw up to 8 cards. I believe he gets to draw 5 total cards here. And another coughing found here for Reagan. Reagan's starting to set up his board. Reagan's starting to basically set up his game plan from this very first turn. Exactly what you want to see as well is that nest ball. Looking through his deck, finding out what prizes are, or what is prized, and finally finding a basic Pokemon to add to this pair of coughings.
I think the one thing that's missing right now that I haven't seen in his hand is a way to get Let Loose down. I feel like that would be one really great way to steal game 2 here against Isaiah. He hasn't been able to play any other cards from his hand except for that Poiple. So if we were able to see that Let Loose ability with limiting Isaiah to only 4 cards and the top deck, you could see Reagan sneak out a quick game.
Yeah, probably don't want to do that with nest ball, but
oh, that won't work. Yeah, don't do that at home.
don't listen to Sable House. But absolutely, couldn't agree more. As now we have triple coughing in play. He chooses to go for a third coughing instead of any other Pokemon in his deck. Definitely believing that coughing is going to be the route to victory here.
Yep, he does those coughings available to him. Ditto as well with that spell tag. It's not going to do anything for him just yet, but of course can evolve into Wheezing on the following turn. We're going to have to see what Isaiah is able to do on his side of the board. Finally going to start to get some Pokemon down for himself here on this first turn.
All right, Isaiah now will take his first turn of the game. Starts it off right away with a nest ball of his own. Remember, Isaiah does have to get multiple evolutions into play as soon as possible. That's how his deck starts to operate. So cards like nest ball, cards like, well, pretty much anything that'll let you get more Pokemon into play. Anything that'll let you get more Pokemon into play will work out there. But yeah, finds Zora, of course.
Yep, Zoro is going to be pivotal for him. He needs to get those trades online as fast as possible. Do see multiple Zoroark in his hand as well.
All right, Isaiah here has an Ultra Ball in his hand as well as a Zoroark. So, does he have a Lily? I believe he does, right? You said he did?
Well, he's got Ultra Ball, so that should be able to help him out for sure. I didn't see what else was in his hand. I knew he had multiple Zoroarks.
We see the Lily get put down to the bottom of the deck. Instead, he finds a Zoroark with the Ultra Ball.
Perhaps could have access to Tapu Lele.
Yeah, Tapu Lele, or I'm pretty sure I saw Lily in his hand, actually. But
right.
We'll have to wait for Isaiah here to finish shuffling his deck. Of course, always want to randomize.
I've heard that's good.
And there is a double colorless energy played onto the Zorua.
Oh, man.
Before a Lily for 7 cards is played.
This is perfect. He also has energy. That was something that was a bit of a struggle for him in this first game. He had to stall a little longer than he wanted to before he could get his attacks online.
Back in my day, you had to discard your hand in order to draw 7, so Isaiah one-upping us here. Also finds a third Zorua with that Poiple active. Remember, Isaiah definitely has a game plan that he does not want to stray from. It's already shown to be very effective.
This is very aggressive over from Reagan. He's going to get a lot of damage down with his Wheezing right now. He's got the double colorless energy, and he's looks like he's going to try to catch the previous strategy of Isaiah's off guard. He saw how long it took to set up, so maybe if he goes very aggressive here with his Wheezings, he can start to take some big knockouts and prevent Isaiah from setting up like he did over the previous game.
Yep, he evolves the active Ditto Prism into a Wheezing and then plays a Wheezing onto the bench before playing Cynthia. So you're absolutely right. I think that's the one key takeaway that Reagan can take from game 1 is that Isaiah had all the time in the world to set up, and Reagan was thinking, well, I mean, dude, you're letting me add
thanks
50 damage every turn.
I'm winning.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
But then we got to see the final game plan and how it played out. So now Reagan's saying, well, I get it, that's powerful, but can you pull this off if I'm starting to take a prize on turn 2 and I'm starting to damage all the rest of your Pokemon from turn 3 on?
I think the biggest difference in this game so far is the fact that Reagan has open bench spaces. This means that Larvitar is always going to be a threat, and maybe Isaiah can't feel as comfortable with all of the damage compiling on his Zoroark GXs. This means that Reagan could have opportunities if a Stinger strategy were to come into play where he could potentially get those 3 prizes in that amount of time if Isaiah doesn't have all the cards in hand already.
Isaiah promoted the Zorua with a double colorless energy on it, played a Zoroark, and just simply played a Judge. He wants to limit both of these players' hand sizes before trading. He didn't want to play any additional cards.
I can see that. I can see that.
He's very comfortable with where he's at in this game, despite being down a prize, and just kind of wants to slow Reagan down if he possibly can.
Yep, so off of this Judge and the upcoming trade, Isaiah's going to want to find 2 more Pokemon. It would just help him with his strategy before. He's going to throw away that Meowth.
There's a Seal coming down. Wants 1 more Pokemon in play, and there's a Marshadow.
That works.
Is he choosing to let loose?
That's the other one, I believe.
Oh, yeah. It's the one that gets rid of the stadiums.
Yep. So he will have Resetting Hole available to him.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
All right, we see the damage start to compile once again from Detention Gas.
Yeah, Detention Gas just really starting to add damage onto the entire bench from Isaiah. And because there's no Mew in play, Splattering Sludge will maximize its damage there. That's just, it's a really, really short clock in comparison to game 1.
Yeah, this seems to be working out a lot better for Reagan.
Shrine of Punishment also in play now. So now that Zoroark GX in the active position will be taking 20 damage and then 10 damage between turns. Do you feel like Isaiah is still comfortable in this spot?
Oh, yeah. No, I feel like his game plan can still definitely come down here. His Zora aren't going to be knocked out just yet, so he has at least 1 more turn to start to find those Zoroark GX, and that would help him out a ton here. We'll see if Reagan's able to maybe throw a little more of a wrench into there. He's got that Marshadow now available to him, but it looks like he's just going to hold on to that for later.
Splattering Sludge, 20 damage on his Zoroark, and then everything else on the bench takes 20 additional damage. So everything's going to be at 50 damage at the end of, or after everything's said and done and after Detention Gas takes effect.
Yep, so this is the turn that Isaiah needs to start evolving his Zora, because I feel like that would be a little too much to lose. He wants to definitely go down in prize cards, but you'd love to have your trades available to you.
And remember now, Reagan has that Weezing still with the 100 damage active. He has to also get that Weezing onto the bench and damage another Weezing if he wants to use the same strategy over again. You don't really want to spend 2 turns knocking out the same Pokemon. And now he's trading away that Lily for, well, actually, it looks like he used Lily, maybe?
Yep, he used the Lily there.
So there will be no Guzma out of him on this.
Still haven't seen any Zoroark. See, Pokemon Communication. Oh, Zoroark is in the hand as well, too, so that helps a lot.
That's 1 Zoroark. Can he find a second?
Yeah, I think that Pokemon Communication is going to help out a lot here. Don't have to worry about the damage on the Marshadow as well. He'll be able to remove that Shrine of Punishment on this turn. And the only thing that's
find a Dugong.
Yeah, the only thing that's missing from his strategy here is that he hasn't had a Guzma, so he can either choose to attack into this Weezing, which doesn't really work for what he likes to do, or he could grab Dugong and maybe try to set up for that double 60 splash he's got.
Yeah, I mean, the other obvious component that's missing is that Naganadel GX. Obviously, you don't want to do that before your opponent has finished knocking out these basic Pokemon. And Shrine of Punishment does get discarded thanks to that Marshadow.
All right, good old Dual Blizzard.
Dual Blizzard dealing 60 damage to both Weezings on the bench.
I've decided to go with the Coughing as well. So
I'm sorry, a Coughing and a Weezing.
If a Weezing is in the prize cards or he is unable to come out from Reagan, that Coughing is going to be pretty close to a knockout as well.
Coughing and Weezing just look identical.
He just adds a little bit more when he's a Weezing. Coughing seems a lot happier too.
It's in the details. All right, Reagan Ratzloff looking through his hand, looking for for a strategy. It seems like he's trying to figure out how many cards are in Isaiah's hand to help him make his decision. Reagan is just, it's a rough matchup, if we're really being honest here. It seems like because of Isaiah's tech cards in his deck, Naganadel, Mew, Dugong, all of these cards are just actually effective. We see that Zoroark is basically just used for its high hit points and trade.
Yep.
Like the actual main component of Isaiah's deck is what's potentially even least relevant here in this matchup.
Right. He just wants to use trade and find all of the other good cards. He doesn't care about Zoroark.
The Dene was the draw for the turn and immediately hits the discard pile for a trade. A second trade gets rid of a choice band. Two basically bad cards in Isaiah's hand get traded for 4 new cards. Isaiah now looking at a hefty little hand. Will he now play his Poipole down, or will he still keep waiting? Remember, Acerola was a key factor in game 1.
Yep, we do see that Isaiah picked up that Field Blower. Sometimes you want to remove those spell tags. If you decide to get aggressive, you can not have to worry about that extra damage coming down. But honestly, most of the time, he likes to hold on to that for when Shrine of Punishment is in play. So we'll see if he wants to hold on to a card like that for later, or if he decides to get aggressive right now, remove these spell tags, and take big knockouts.
Yeah, I mean, it's always tempting to get rid of 2 spell tags. It's always tempting to get rid of 2 targets anyway, no matter what, right?
Right.
But, I mean, spell tag specifically is very powerful. It's just a matter of whether you're patient enough to wait for that Shrine of Punishment, or whether you believe that you can deal with the Shrine of Punishment anyways later on.
Yep, so we do see Tapu Lele coming down. Acerola is likely going to be the target here. Can pick up that Dugong and make a different choice of if he wants to start attacking or if he wants to buy a little more time. Dugong's a fantastic way to take those last remaining prize cards. It doesn't always have to be done by Mew.
The Guzma is the supporter played for the turn, though, as now Oranguru, which usually likes to hang out in the back, is promoted to the active position, and Zoroark GX is going to ride a speeding 100 damage onto it. So now we have the damage that we need on most of these Pokemon. Marshadow immediately letting loose for Reagan here. 2 players now both shuffling their hands into their deck and drawing only 4 cards apiece. We've seen Let Loose just be so devastating to players in the past. Will it do the trick one more time?
The only issue I have with this play is Reagan filled his bench. he has no more tech cards available to him, and Isaiah's already shown that he is not going to take a prize until he's winning the game.
That does limit Reagan's options for the remainder of the game, but if his hand wasn't helping him, if his hand wasn't cooperating, then I completely understand. You don't want to just kind of pass with a Oranguru and play, or with an Oranguru as your only active and no other action, as then you give Isaiah way too much time. So we'll have to see if the strategy ends up paying off. I believe he's got an adventure bag, finds a rescue board.
Yeah, he's got the escape board there. He could try to find a way to retreat if he found another energy. Oranguru is a big boy.
Oranguru gets that escape board played onto it, as well as, well, actually the spell tag also came onto the coughing as well, just so you know. So that's going to make it a little bit easier for that spell tag to take effect if necessary. And Wheezing being promoted as Oranguru retreats after discarding the rescue, the energy, and Wheezing will be using its attack in order to deal a little bit of damage to his Zoroark.
Yep, Reagan wisely bringing up the Wheezing that has the damage on it already. This means that if Isaiah wanted to get relevant damage onto the board once more, he'd have to do it by means of a Guzma, or maybe using that sniping effect that he has from his Dugong.
All right, now Isaiah, will he finally play a Poipole here? Do you play a Poipole at this point, or do you continue to wait?
Your opponent's shown that they may not have a card like Guzma in their hand. He's kind of been fishing a lot recently, and he was only able to draw up to 3 with his Oranguru, so the chances of him having the Guzma at this point in time is fairly unlikely. It might be a safe call he may not feel comfortable with the amount of damage that's on his side of the board right now.
You know, it's a lot of damage on the board, but it's not all stacked up on, you know, any particular Pokemon.
Right.
If you can set up a following turn that gives you 3 prizes, then your opponent just can't take 3 prizes on his one turn.
Right. I feel like when Isaiah decides to go for it, it's going to be at that 100% mark. It may be at the 90 right now, where if he has the cards, he could get there. But, I mean, he's almost seen every possible option from Reagan. As soon as that Marshadow came down into play, now Isaiah knows, I can fill my hand up. I can make sure that this combo is in my hand and 100% ready to go. We might see him take 1 or 2 turns extra from this point forward to get all of the trades, a nice big hand, and then lock in the strategy for the win.
So now both of these players are taking a little bit of a chance to make sure that the game state is correct.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things going on here with resistance and damage counters flying all over the place, and
Abilities.
yeah, there's just so much going on here. It gets hard to keep track of. It looks like they were able to catch 10 damage from a Zoroark that should not have been in play.
Yeah, I mean, you think about detention gas, you think about splattering sludge, you think about resistance, you think about all this, and it's very easy to miss 10 damage, 20 damage here and there. But yeah, Isaiah's strategy is the one that's going to be the most complicated. Isaiah is the one who's going to have to time a lot of these cards almost to perfection in order to get maximum effect out of it and make sure that he doesn't kind of like just accidentally give the game away to Reagan.
I see Poiple.
Rescue Stretcher, bringing the Poiple to the front. Could be time, and it looks like it is. Poiple now, we could be on our second to last turn of the game here for Isaiah. Well, third to last.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of time, but definitely aligning with that strategy that we saw in the first game. Does Reagan have anything that he can do about this? Looks like he can use Mysterious Treasure, try to thin down his hand. He's going to be looking to find the perfect cards off of the Oranguru to at least disrupt the Poiple.
Weezing now. A third Weezing in play. Fourth Weezing in play.
It's a lot of Weezing.
Well, all right, Marshadow as well to help fill out this very, very psychic bench here for Reagan. And Oranguru, of course. Which kind of is psychic on his own, you know?
Yeah, he's got that ability as well. He's just looking after all his friends that just can't stop wheezing. They need to go to the hospital as soon as possible.
Looks like a Shrine of Punishment comes down for Reagan. So, again, running low on damage counters.
Hey, stop taking my red ones. I need those.
And it looks like we're now going to be between turns as Splattering Sludge is announced.
We'll do Shrine first. So this goes
And of course, Mew just being so effective there, making sure that the damage just doesn't add up to critical levels. You have to believe that we're going to now see Naganadel do what it does best.
Yep, we do see that Pokemon Communication in hand. He had an extra one that he could discard there with the trade as well.
He found a Ditto, which means he'll be able to use that Pokemon Communication if need be.
Found Field Blower as well, so can remove that Shrine of Punishment.
So a couple of trades now already used here for Isaiah, so now he's got full information on his hand, free to make any decision he'd like to make.
Says, what are you doing over there? Let's see.
Did he have a triple acceleration energy in hand?
I don't think I've seen that yet. That may be the
Yeah.
one piece that's missing here.
Yeah, I thought I saw that that he was missing it as well. If that's the case, it might be there.
It might be a double colorless. I couldn't tell just for sure there. So
Well,
it looks like he's
a
going to buy a little
Guzma.
time. So he can also use this Field Blower to remove the escape board here, which is a fantastic play. It buys him a pretty good amount of time here. He sees 2 double colorless energy in play on the Weezing. So getting this Oranguru removed from the active spot could be very difficult.
Yeah, he's already played something like 3 counter energies, right?
Yep, and even then he has a 2 retreat cost. As soon as the skateboard's moved, it's going to be, it could be stuck for a while. And it looks like he wants to hold on to it
Yeah,
here.
that escape board's still there, so if he finds another counter energy, he'll be able to retreat for pretty cheap. And there it is.
All right.
Counter energy, potentially number 4, if not, then number 3. Now Reagan still eyeing down his options, decides to play a rescue stretcher to just shuffle the Frost Rotom back into his deck. No additional target.
No other targets there.
I'm assuming he may have something like a Lily in hand.
Yeah, I think he's playing low just to see what the Instruct can give him.
Oh yeah, that's true. He can Instruct first. Of course, this is now the lesser played Oranguru, even though it originally was just all over the place.
They're both so good.
Yeah. Looks like he's now choosing to retreat after using Instruct. Promotes the Weezing with 100 damage and a double colorless energy attached. Choosing to, once again, just kind of splattering sludge for not a lot.
Right. The order of operations is pretty important here, just with the way that the Mew takes the damage in between turns after the attack has already occurred. So Mew is going to hit the discard pile, but not much damage is going to be spread around from this point.
Right, Reagan now down to 3 prizes. We've seen this before. We saw Reagan try to jump really far ahead, but
Triple.
because of Isaiah's multiple Zoroarks, he was unable to really get too much going, was Reagan. And now with that triple acceleration energy in his hand, he finally drew it. Is it now time for Naganadel?
Yeah, he has the Giratina in the discard pile as well, so almost everything is set up for him. The only thing that's missing is Mew's in the discard pile right now, so may have to finish the combination off with Dugong and a triple acceleration energy. Actually, I don't see another Pokemon with just 10 hit points remaining, so he would have to find that Mew.
All right, looks like a Lily for 2.
So with the, previously in the first game, there was that Tapu Koko that had 100 damage on it and only 110 hit points. That led to the three knockouts being able to occur in one turn. It may get a little more difficult here just because 3 Pokemon aren't aligned to get knocked out in one turn.
There's the Pokemon communication now being played. Will that find him the Naganadel GX? Is it in the deck? Is it in the deck?
Not that I see. Looks like he's going to go ahead and take that Zoroark.
Is it prized maybe?
Well, we do have that camera available for us, so we could give that a peek.
It could have been discarded earlier in the game, but it might be prized. Not prized, either in his hand or discarded earlier in the game. Did we see a rescue stretcher in the deck at all?
I know we've seen one played. I don't believe we've seen the second one hit the discard pile just yet. It's time for that field blower. Nope.
Nope, not yet. He's being very careful about when he plays that field blower. Chooses to do so now. Gets rid of, I believe, a couple of spell tags. Or actually, no, he finally gets rid of that escape board. And Acerola being the supporter for this turn. That Zoroark, which has accumulated so much damage, has finally had enough, and it's time for a little bit,
So I
bit
think
of a break.
Dugong needs to hit the Marshadow this turn. If it hits the Marshadow, then he can get it to 60, and then he could try to set up for that knockout that he's looking for. He's just been like a little bit off.
He did have the Naganadel in his hand.
He wants a Pokemon to be 10 hit points away, and that just hasn't been able to happen for him just yet.
Now, does he have multiple Pokemon which are 20 hit points away? He does. But because that coughing evolves into a wheezing, it took away that option. Is he going to choose to use this turn to dual Blizzard?
So he needs the increments to always work in a way that that 50 damage needs to be placed in one turn instead of 60 damage.
Right.
And he currently doesn't have that available to him, just the way that the hit points work out.
Which means that you might have to change the strategy up and just...
It might just take 2 turns.
Yeah,
is
exactly.
what it is. And that's what he doesn't really want that to happen, because that means Reagan has a bench space open up and then things can get weird. And we'll just have to see if that's the strategy that Isaiah has to work with now. He kind of is working on the fly.
Yeah, but he's committed, right? Like, now that he's got the Dugong active, like, it's not like you're just going to be able to retreat the Dugong and promote Naganadel.
Right.
You've already used your supporter, so you can't Guzma. Seems like it's time to dual Blizzard.
Can't play that Ditto, or it's going to just hit the discard pile before you know it. All right, so that damage is going to go onto the Mars Shadow here.
Mars Shadow taking 60 damage, as well as the last Weezing, the last undamaged Weezing taking 60 damage as well. So now we are in a position where every Pokemon in Reagan's side of the field has at least 60 damage on it. And every Pokemon on Isaiah's side of the field is damaged.
Reagan found his one Guzma. I don't know if he's going to be able to use that to a big impact here, but certainly is interesting. This is a card that Isaiah doesn't really feel like he has to play around, being that it's only a one of in the deck.
And I wonder how many more triple acceleration energies Isaiah has access to, because remember, he's got a limited amount of resources. He's got a limited amount of cards in his hand and in his deck.
All right, here comes that Guzma.
Guzma now choosing to play this one Guzma in his deck. Remember, he has to get maximum effort, maximum use out of this Guzma. Promotes the Naganadel and his own Weezing.
This one takes 20 from Sludge. This one takes 30.
Ton of damage now being dealt to Isaiah's side of the field, as there's no Mew in play.
Naganadel GX does have that psychic weakness, so Weezing gets to apply a little more extra damage there.
Oh, man.
How much damage is in play? Like 900?
I don't even want to count it. I'm not falling for that trick, Kyle. All right. I mean, I'm at a loss of words here. There's so much going on.
So I bring up the amount of damage only because if Isaiah goes for a strategy that doesn't win the game in one turn, we could see the Tapu Lele come into play with a counter energy and just move these damage counters to win the game in one turn on his side of the board. Reagan could just go ahead and clean it up. So it's very important that Isaiah is able to find a way to close out this game in one turn.
Isaiah able to communicate, chooses not to find anything, I believe.
It's only got like 5 cards left in his deck.
Well, he added a card to his deck through that play, and now it's just both of these players are deep in the tank. And the truth is that it's kind of left us deep in the tank too, if you think about it. Both of us are just we're trying to figure out how the rest of this game is going to go, and it's just so confusing and it's so complicated.
So I think I see how the strategy can line up. If he can use his Giratina and put the damage onto the board this turn, or in any following turn, he could use his Pal Pad, grab his Acerola. His Acerola could pick up his Giratina. He discards that Giratina with trade, plays it back down in one big wild turn, and then he can win the game.
Which means that
who'd I lose?
It means that he's going to need the Pal Pad. The good news for him is that his deck is so low that if he finds a Pal Pad, he's pretty much guaranteed to be able to use that Acerola the same turn.
Right.
We already know that he's used the Acerola once, so he needs to get the Pal Pad if he wants to go with the strategy.
I think I'd seen the Pal Pad in his hand prior to the judge occurring as well. So maybe that's not the line that Isaiah wants to go for just yet, or maybe he feels comfortable being able to draw into it with how small his deck is right now.
We saw Isaiah nearly play that triple acceleration energy. The truth is that is a strategy that can absolutely work thanks to all the damage that you've already put into play here on Reagan's side of the field. I really like that strategy too if he can pull it off on the following turn, because it's absolutely critical to get rid of all these damage counters from Reagan's side of the field if possible. You have to start worrying about things like Tapu Lele. But he is going to do it. He's going for that Stinger GX.
All right.
It's time, Kyle. Stinger GX shuffles both of these players' prizes back into their decks and resets them both at 3. Will Reagan pull it off, or does he have does he only have a single turn to pull this off, or will Isaiah not be able to pull off the double Giratina turn?
I feel like the double Giratina turn needed to start this turn, right?
Well, I mean, I didn't count how much damage is on Reagan's field. Remember, he's got a full bench, so he can't just play the Giratina, right? Or he can't just play the Tapu Lele.
Yep, this may have left the window just slightly cracked. Damage is going to continue to compile here.
Every time between turns this is happening.
All right, we'll see if he's able to find this here. He's got that rescue stretcher in his hand, so does have Mew available to him.
Yeah, it looks like Isaiah's turn. It looks like it's Isaiah's turn now, as Reagan just basically immediately attacked and ended his turn, and we saw just how much damage is now applied onto Isaiah's field. Because Reagan's board is full, he isn't able to use cards like Tapu Lele, which would have been just absolutely backbreaking here for Isaiah. And now he has Rescue Stretcher, which means he can... Well, the truth is you need Pal Pad. Discards Zoroark to trade in order to draw 2 cards.
Unable to find it. Looks like he's...
He can find a Nest Ball, though there's only like 4 cards left in the deck, which means if one of them is Pal Pad, which we believe it is, he's got a 50% chance of drawing it with Zoroark. Instead, if he plays something like Nest Ball, he can make it even...
Even if he finds Pal Pad, he wouldn't be able to use it unless he found the Tapu Lele as well. So it's going to have to take a risk here, shuffle in these Pokemon. He also has that Dedenne. He could use that to start to draw all these cards.
Yeah, his hand is just not helping him yet. Wants to play a Nest Ball after playing that Rescue Stretcher in order to bring back that Mew. Does that Mew mean that he only needs a single Giratina? I don't think so, right?
I still think he's just 10 damage short of...
All right, looks like he does use a second. Okay, well, we found a Dedenne, which Giratina immediately comes down, takes 2 prizes for Isaiah. Isaiah now, or only 1 prize for Isaiah. Isaiah now down to 2 prizes.
So it looks like the Marshadow had...
Yeah. So Isaiah is actually forced to scoop his cards up. Just barely short, was unable to take 1 more prize with a Giratina, which would have allowed him to attack for a final prize. Or, wow. Just unbelievable. Have you been keeping track of how much time's left on the clock? I've just been so ingrained in this game.
Right, yeah. It's been so tricky to watch. Okay, so the Marshadow Let Loose has 70 hit points. That was one thing that I was missing out throughout there. He wasn't able to set up a turn where he could use the Giratina, remove the Naganadel from the active spot, and then take the knockout there. So with the 70 hit points, he did have that lined up for himself there. He just wasn't able to put all the pieces together in the amount of time that he put himself on with the Stinger clock. So we can look for that in this game here. He either has, with those...
12 minutes left, Kyle.
Oh, man, yeah. So, I mean, honestly, that might be good for Isaiah because he's
now
playing,
he can just get
you're
ahead,
playing
right?
against a spread deck. They take prizes later in the game once all this damage has compiled. If Isaiah just flips his strategy with the way that time has worked here, he could just take a few knockouts and he'll just win the game based on how many prizes he's taken.
You know, I would agree with you, except for there's one little kind of like burden there, right? And that's you're used to, your internal clock is used to that, like, you know, 55-minute time limit, things like that.
Right.
You're not used to these 75 minutes. So you inherently aren't, you know, set up and aware of how much time's left on the clock in these kinds of games very often. He may very well believe that there's more time on the clock. He may very well believe that there's something like 20 minutes left in the game or something along those lines, and it might not go, you know, the aggressive route. Might be able to think that he can still pull off a long, drawn out victory. We saw where the strategy failed this time around, but it seems to be very sound and very effective. So we'll have to see if, you know, which strategy Isaiah goes for. Obviously, Reagan kind of limited to, you know, just dealing 40 damage.
Go, Weezing, go, yeah.
Reagan doesn't have a ton of attackers available to him.
Yep.
He definitely just kind of relies on abilities and Shrine of Punishment in order to deal damage. So Isaiah is the one with the options. Isaiah is the one who has to kind of dictate the pace of this game. And we'll have to see what strategy he goes with, but it looks like there's going to be about maybe even like 9.5 minutes left on the clock before these players even play the first card of this third and final game. Remember, Reagan Retzloff and Isaiah Bradner are tied at 1 game apiece. We see Shrine of Punishment and a couple of double color synergies prize for Reagan there, so those are not the best prizes you can have.
Yeah, that means that Reagan may have a hard time getting his first attacks off in this game if he isn't already down in prize cards.
And now Isaiah, will he find a basic in order to start playing his prizes himself? It looks like he does. So now we are getting ready to begin Game 3. Remember, the winner of this game will be crowned your Senior Division North American International Champion.
All right.
Looks like a couple of Zoros and a Zoroark as well as a Judge.
That's
so
tricky, man.
Both of these players have very tricky prizes. That's going to limit some options for these players. Isaiah gets to go first, plays an Ultra Ball after starting with Meowth against this Larvitar. Ultra Ball discarding away a Guzma and a Zoroark, 2 very powerful cards, which are about, all 3 of these cards are actually about to say goodbye to this format, by the way. Just kind of like the most dominant cards in the standard format, all 3 of them being discarded on this first turn of this final game. And they are saying their final goodbye to the standard format after this tournament, so goodbye to them too.
Into the discard with you. So Isaiah's taking a peek. He's getting the bad news. He does not have many Zoro to finish this final game here in the championship.
And remember, he got rid of his Zoroark, which means because 1's prize, there's only 2 left in the deck. So that's also going to be a little bit more difficult to find.
Yeah,
I would not be surprised to not see a turn 2 Zoroark out of Isaiah this game.
I believe the only supporter in his hand that would help him out here is a Tate and Liza, and yeah, he's going to have to go for it.
Tate and Liza, basically not the ideal turn 1 supporter if you're Isaiah, but
safe to say.
It's what you're going to have to go with, as he's going to shuffle his hand and draw only 5 cards. Quite a bit weaker than Lily on turn 1. But will these 5 cards get him where he needs to be? He only has 2 Pokemon in play. This is quite different from his starts the other 2 games.
All right, we do
honestly, this hand is not looking ideal either.
Pokemon communication and a Pokemon means that he could find a card like Dedenne if he wanted to get aggressive here and start to see more cards. Could just hold on to these if he wants to possibly just see Zoroark and go about it a slower route, or maybe a Tapu Lele on the following turn. Yeah, he seems content here with just passing.
Yeah, like having to discard cards like Dugong and having to add like Detonate to your board are just not things that you want to do in this matchup.
Right.
If you can help it. But remember, now there's 7 minutes and 40 seconds left on the clock as Reagan takes his first turn of this game. This final game, Reagan now looking through his deck, looking through his options, trying to find out what's prized. At this point, he's potentially finding out that there's only 2 double colorless energy in this deck. So he's going to have to be very careful about how he plays his energies. We know that Isaiah is, if Isaiah can go with the strategy one more time, he will not be taking very many prizes, if any at all.
Yep, he might just take the 1 that's necessary to win the game, honestly, on that 3rd turn or that 2nd turn for him, depending on how this works out. Both players take a little bit of time to set up in a matchup like this.
Mysterious Treasure, finding any Psychic Pokemon out of Reagan's deck. We already see one coughing on the bench. Will we see a second? There it is, that second coughing. Reagan's deck, like we said, not really the most versatile deck there is, but it does show you the power of multiple wheezings, as when this family gets together, it really messes with its opponent's party. Nest Ball now finding a Tapu Koko. Will we see some flying flips early on in this game against these two lone basic Pokemon?
Yeah, it's not going to do very much, but having access to free retreat can be pretty helpful for you.
Spell tag onto the coughing. There's still, I believe, a Lily in his hand. There it is.
Right.
Reagan is not going to be falling far behind here, as unlike Isaiah, he does have the ideal turn 1 supporter in Lily, drawing up until he has 8 cards in his hand.
Still no energies from what I can see.
Well, that's because you have a couple of them prized.
Yep.
When you have them prized, they're just so much harder to find. He did give a kind of a bit of a shake to his hand. You see an escape board played onto the Larvitar. That's going to let him promote that Tapu Koko. And he might have to just pass the turn here. It looks like he's getting ready to pass.
He does have some other cards he could play. He has an Adventure Bag and a Nest Ball as well.
Yeah, you could find a third coughing if you'd like. I mean, obviously there's other options, but
Frost Rotom.
there it is, coughing number 3. Yeah, right. It's a little bit too early to be playing cards like Tapu Lele and other stuff, so coughing number 3 is going to be the option here for Reagan, as he does not have the double colorless energy to use a turn 1 flying flip, so he may just pass the turn over to Isaiah. He knows Isaiah's turn 1 wasn't particularly strong itself, so no harm done, no harm, no foul, as Isaiah now begins his second turn, immediately finds himself a double colorless energy. I'm sure Reagan would have loved to have that one. Pokemon Communication will allow that Seal or Dugong to go back into the deck, which means it's not going to have to be discarded if Isaiah does choose to go with the Dedenne. We see him immediately move that Dedenne to the bottom of the deck, so it is one of his options, potentially the key option.
Yep.
Could also go with something like Tapu Lele GX.
I think the Dedenne means that Isaiah knows exactly how much time he's working with here. He knows that they're getting close to the end here. If he can get himself a pretty favorable board and set up to take one of these knockouts soon, he could make himself the champion here in the senior division.
And speaking of time, we are just about to cross the 4-minute mark, as we're about to have a little bit under 4 minutes remaining. There it is, before this match is officially out of time and we go down to sudden death.
Yep, we would have that +3 turns.
There it is, Dedenne changing.
Would love to find a supporter here or a Zoroark.
Cards the rest of his hand in order to draw in 6 new ones. Refreshing his hand,
That hand
finding
looks
that
good.
Zoroark. Not only does he have that Zoroark, but he also has access to a few additional cards like that Tapu Lele GX in his hand. First he chooses to trade, finds the final Zoroark left in his deck.
Yeah, even able to discard that Giratina that's been able to help him get to that exact math that he's wanted so long. This is actually pretty important that the Giratina is in the discard pile right now and the Tapu Koko is active. If Isaiah wanted to get 100 damage onto that Tapu Koko from a Zoroark attack, he could set up to just use Giratina to clean off a game, and it wouldn't mean that Reagan had any chance to use any counter energies from that point.
Extremely good point, Kyle. And we actually have some breaking news. We have a 2-minute time extension, so that means that they're going to have 2 minutes added onto the clock once time runs out.
All right.
We still have approximately 5 minutes left on the game. That's potentially critical news, specifically for Reagan, as of course Isaiah can deal a ton of damage every turn, and Reagan does a ton of damage himself. It's just not onto one single Pokemon.
Yeah, it's slow and steady. Adventure.
That counter energy would just be absolutely crucial here for Reagan, though. He has not been able to use it at all in this match. If he can use it even for a single turn, then he can use things like, for example, Tapu Lele to potentially really surprise Isaiah and potentially steal a game and the match.
Choosing to go with the spell tags over a choice band in a situation like this, it's kind of tricky for me to agree with, because I feel like you need to get as much damage down as you can when the clock is ticked this low. Spell tag means that your opponent's going to be
Agree.
taking prize cards, and I don't think that you're going to see Isaiah take a prize card until he absolutely has to.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as the judge calls time, he'll know that he can take 2 prizes right there just by attacking twice. Does Isaiah, and Reagan does not have the
He
benefit.
found a
of
double
having this
colorless
information.
energy.
Finds a DCE, plays it onto that Tapu Koko. He knows that it's a double-edged sword for Isaiah. Isaiah either allows him to keep flying flipping, or he takes a prize and allows Reagan to now use counter energy to its full potential. Either of these options is good for Reagan, so Reagan more than happy to play that double colorless energy onto the Tapu Koko. And we will see a flying flip from here on out, as we now see the first Weezing this game as well.
Yeah, this is a great call from Reagan. Using this Tapu Koko, even though it has damage on it, to put pressure on with Flying Flip. He knows his opponent doesn't want to take this prize card, but if he doesn't take this prize card, Flying Flip's going to continue, and that starts to damage all of these Pokemon. It really puts the clock on for Isaiah to find all of the evolutions as fast as possible, and that's going to be pretty tricky with only one Zoroark in play so far.
And it really, puts the spotlight on cards like Larvitar. That card's been kind of hidden away here for Reagan, just sitting in the wings. But the moment that that Reagan can use it, he will.
Yeah, he'd like to use Second Strike in combination with a Choice Band. It's generally how you get a big knockout on a Zoroark GX. Unfortunately, he did have to attach that skateboard to it this game just so that he could get it out of the active spot. It's just one of the struggles of starting with it.
Sure, but if you get enough damage counters onto that Zoroark, you can still definitely earn yourself 2 very critical prizes. Now Cynthia is going to be found with that Pokegear.
Critical over on Isaiah's side. That previous turn, he was able to find that Mew, so he completely negated all the effects of Flying Flip, at least for the bench.
Now, if he can find a Choice Band on this turn, put 50 damage on that Zoroark GX, that would be nice.
Yeah, he's starting to line up some math for that Larvitar if he was able to find his last double colorless energy.
Yeah, no kidding. Only 1 double colorless energy left in the deck for Reagan.
Well, he's got the supporters that he needs to do it. He's using Cynthia here. Oh my
There's
goodness.
that double colorless. And there's
And he found his
Shrine.
Guzma too.
Guzma as well. Guzma could be very crucial, as Dedenne is also looking very, very appealing if you're Reagan. Chooses to retreat the Tapu Koko to start attacking with Weezing, as that's now his final double colorless energy being attached here. That means that Larvitar will likely not be able to attack this game.
Oh, we're getting so close.
There's now less than a minute remaining before the time extension's allowed.
So we do see that Isaiah is able to find another Zoroark GX. He also has that Acerola in his hand. Choosing not to go with it this turn, he might be able to set it up to get one last use out of it when we're in time.
All right, Lily will draw 2 cards.
He'd love to see some more Pokemon here.
Isaiah, now we see the first trade, trading away the seal for 2 new cards. Looks like an Ultra Ball here. All right, Ultra Ball will be able to find him. That Dugong. Dugong also very good at taking multiple prizes in a single turn against these non-GX decks.
Yeah, we'll see if he's able to use that to help himself here. Does have a full bench, so wouldn't mind if that Meowth was able to fall, or potentially could use that Acerola to open up a free spot for his Giratina. Next turn, I think everything's starting to slowly shape up for Isaiah as long as he doesn't take a prize on this turn.
Looks like the timer is down to 0, but this is where the extension comes into play. Hopefully we'll know when time is called, when time is officially called. And that triple acceleration energy, 60 damage onto both Coughings.
Yeah, this is very well done by Isaiah. Now the pressure's onto Reagan. He needs to start to evolve these Pokemon. And I don't think that he has access to that.
Detention gas, at least helping Reagan out a little bit here. What is Reagan going to pull?
We have word that time has been called.
All right, time has been called. Then was time called on Isaiah's turn, I believe.
I would assume that it's Reagan's, but I'm not sure.
We'll find out. We'll be finding out who's turn 0, 1, 2, and 3. But in the meantime, we just have to play this game out. We know that these players do know time's called, so every turn is crucial and critical. Looks like turn 1 belongs to Reagan. As we saw the judge move that die.
So we do see the Guzma.
If he had access to that double colorless energy, he would have been able to bring out the Zoroark GX and attack with Larvitar.
Only copy of this card in his deck, wants to make sure that he gets the most use out of it. Looks like he's going to line it up with the Mew, wants to get that damage onto the bench.
Instead, choosing to attack with this Weezing, knocking out the Mew. The Mew will be the first prize card taken of this game. Remember, Reagan was turn 1, which means Isaiah's going to only have 1 turn available to him. Now we're on turn 2. This is Isaiah's last turn, and he is down in prizes. Can he take multiple prizes in this turn?
He can take 3 prizes this turn with a triple acceleration energy. The only problem would be, is Reagan going to be able to find a counter catcher along with a counter energy for that Larvitar to knock out either the Dedenne or one of the Zoroarks?
Looks like Acerola will be able to pick up the Dedenne. Zoroark still in play, still has 70 damage on it. Dedenne will discard the rest of Isaiah's hand.
Let's see what he finds here. He needs to find that triple acceleration energy for sure. He also has his trades available too.
Looks like we're still looking for the triple acceleration energy. Have not found it yet. Trade number 1, find the double colorless, which is not going to be enough. 1 more trade.
Even has outs with using the Giratina to
There's a trade.
find his prize
Finds a
cards.
Nest Ball and a Palpat. Still no triple acceleration energy.
Can use Giratina and fish through his prize cards.
Giratina will allow him.
Oh, it's so close.
Oh man, I want to see his prize cards. Can we take a look at Isaiah's prize cards right now and see what he's got working with him?
I don't think he
There's nothing there.
Can't find anything for himself in there.
All right.
Gonna take
Isaiah's
2
final
prize
turn.
cards.
Isaiah does make sure and at least get ahead in the prize race. Gonna force Reagan to have something going. Remember, Reagan still needs to at least take 1 prize on his following turn.
Persian means that Meowth is no longer a target to get knocked out.
Indeed. Evolving that Persian was very important. There's no Mew in play any longer.
Looking to just promote a Pokemon that won't get knocked out in this spot.
Looks to be attaching.
I think Dugong's pretty safe.
Oh man. Okay, this is close.
It's really all up to what is in Reagan's hand at this point. If he has that counter energy and a counter catcher, I think he can just seal this.
He has not played a counter energy yet. We do know that he plays 2 counter catchers, so it's not like it's impossible, even though it is a little improbable. It looks like he just chooses to pass with his Dugong active, and after all these damage counters get added, it's up to counter catcher plus counter energy. Does Reagan have what he needs?
It looks like he found a mysterious treasure, so he would be able to go into his deck, at least find a card like a Let Loose Marshadow potentially to help him out. He's looking, he sees, fans out a few of those counter energies. I see at least 3 in the deck there for him.
Now, if we can take a look at Reagan's prizes to see if he's got any of these cards prized, looks like there's 1 triple acceleration energy, but nothing like, nothing that's actually relevant in this case.
One triple and 1 double. Oh, he doesn't have it.
He chose actually to scoop up his cards. Looked like he didn't have anything going for him. And that means Isaiah Bradner is going to win this game.
Wow.
And this match and become your senior division North American International Champion. That was about as close as you can possibly get. Down to the absolute wire. The final turn of the game could have still provided Reagan with the cards he needed to become the champion, but instead he looks through his deck, sees that there's nothing available to him, and decides to extend the hand.
Isaiah, you now hold the title of North America International Champion. How does that feel?
It feels amazing. I worked so hard for this tournament. I prepared a lot, came early last week for Origins, tested the entire week, so I'm really glad to get this trophy. Super relieved.
There are a lot of people who are probably watching you and listening to every word thinking, I want to do just what he did. I want to be right there. What advice do you have for people who want to be champions like you?
So the main thing is play a lot of Pokemon. That's how I think that I became as good as I am. I just played a lot. I played a lot on PTCGO. I went to my local league. I played with my dad. He actually helped me a lot with that. I just played more and more, and the more you play, the more you familiarize yourself with the game. You get to know card interactions better, and I think that that's the biggest thing. Just play a lot of Pokemon.
Are there any other people like your dad that you want to say thank you or shout outs to right now?
Yes, I would like to give a big thank you to the B&B. There are way too many people. Bert, Michael Catron, Jonathan Croxton, Stefan Ivanov, Henry Brand, Will Jenkins. I would like to thank everyone that helped me test. I had a great time. And then thank my parents for allowing me to come to these events. They've always supported me. And yeah.
There are a lot of those people standing right here, so we'll let you go celebrate with them. Congratulations again. And everyone, let's hear it one more time for your North America International Champion. We will be right back with more after this.